Salutations. Welcome to Mustache Cash Dash Terror Tales Volume 4.
So,
right.
Yeah. Chat, welcome to Terror Tales of MCS Volume 4. So, I'll be going first, and my story this year is titled, And Then There Were Some.
Oh.
If the guy on the computer can stop making a bunch of noise, I'll get going.
Hey, buddy,
I'm going to turn you down a little bit, actually, in case you talk at any point, because you're too loud. And then there were some. It was a typical fall day. The air grew warm as the sun rose in the sky and quickly cooled to a chill as it fell. Night came and the moon outshone the stars. We climbed the grassy, leaf-littered hill towards the looming house illuminated with strings and jack-o'-lanterns. It looks so nice, so festive. I like the little pumpkin, Kendra pointed to the smallest jack-o'-lantern. It does look nice, I agreed. I wonder how Katrina got a hold of this place anyways. The house atop the hill was large, and there were no neighbors in sight. We reached the door side by side and knocked twice. We were both dressed as Dracula. The door swung open, and there stood Aiden, dressed as Mr. Crocker from Fairly Odd Parents. Welcome, he gestured us inside. Nice costumes, very scary, he added approvingly. Thanks, you too, I returned. Where is everyone? Joe's in the kitchen, and I think Hudson's in there too. He just got here. Katrina and Cora are in the living room, and James is rolling around here somewhere. He shrugged. The house was impressive. We stood in the entryway, facing a large, ascending staircase. Beside it was a bathroom. To our left was a magnificent dining room. To the right, we entered the kitchen. The countertops were polished granite, the cabinets painted a deep green. Joe was pouring himself and Hudson some mug root beer. Joe wore his shaggy gorilla costume, but without the mask. Hudson wore a white polo shirt and a pair of blue jeans. There they are, Hudson cheered. Hudson, Kendra noted enthusiastically. I looked at Joe. Went with the gorilla again, I see? I spent $100 on this thing. I gotta ring it for all it's worth, he explained. Fair enough, I agreed easily. No mask, though? I literally cannot breathe in that thing, he explained, wide-eyed. I swung my gaze to Hudson. So what, you missed the memo? He gestured to his white shirt and blue pants. I'm Homer Simpson. Donuts. Beer. Dope, he demonstrated. Oh my god, I thought so. I was gonna say, Kendra approved. Yeah, I came straight from work, so I just wore this today, Hudson elaborated. There was a knock on the door and I went to open it. There stood Silas, also fully dressed as Dracula. He looked me up and down and said, Well, this is embarrassing. Well, we walked to the kitchen. I said, Glad you could make it. I can't believe you happened to be in town the week that we were having this party. Hey, life finds a way, I guess, he shrugged. Silas! Hudson, Joe, Aiden, and James cheered as we entered. Good to see you, man, Hudson added. As James was in the room now, I observed his costume. He was dressed just like normal, but he sat in a wheelchair. You break your leg or something? I prompted skeptically. It's my costume. I'm Joe from Family Guy. Kendra frowned. Silas laughed. Did you buy a wheelchair just for that? For your information, I got this choice wheelchair off Facebook Marketplace for practically nothing. Actually, the guy was selling it for practically nothing. I lowballed him and got it for literally nothing. Katrina and Cora entered from the living room. They were dressed as Linguini and Colette from Ratatouille. Hey, looks like everyone's here, Katrina acknowledged. Are you guys going to come to the living room, or what's the plan? We all murmured assent and moved towards the living room. Hudson patted James on the shoulder. This place is awesome, man. Thanks for inviting me. James grinned. Oh yeah, no problem, man. Whose house is this anyways, Hudson asked. James's expression turned to confusion. Huh? I thought you were kidding. I didn't invite you. I got an invite from Nick. They both turned to me. I raised my eyebrow. Nope, you didn't. Katrina invited us. I gestured to Kendra and myself. Joe said, Wait, I thought this was Hudson's party. And Aiden nodded in agreement. Katrina, I hollered to the front of the group. Whose party is this? She looked at me as if I were testing her and said, Joe's? He said it was so we can all get together while he's home from college. Actually, I didn't even plan to come home. I had to hop a last-minute flight to avoid the hurricane. I didn't invite anyone, Joe explained. We all stopped in the living room looking at each other. The room was well furnished. Soft brown couches, cream-colored carpeting, tasteful landscape paintings on the eggshell walls. It was a long room, using up the back half of the floor. At the corner was a door which led to the basement. We had formed a circle around the oaken coffee table in the center of the room. A tense silence lingered. So, whose party is this? A flustered Hudson demanded. Probably yo mama's, Silas declared, then turned to me for a high five. Before I could consider completing it, a crossbow bolt struck him in the chest with such force that he was pinned to the wall behind him. We all stared, frozen with shock. That hurt so bad, he croaked, then he fell limp. Hudson screamed, "Oh my God!" and Katrina's jaw dropped. Panicked, Kendra ran over to check Silas's vitals. Joe and Aiden followed her. I turned and saw the tear in the painting where the bolt had come through. James saw it too. I took the painting off the wall, revealing a hidden compartment where the crossbow sat aimed. James and I exchanged a look, then joined the others near Silas's body. I looked at Kendra for confirmation, and she shook her head solemnly. "This is the worst party I've been to since Sean's 30th, Joe cried. We cowered around the body silently until Hudson declared, "I'm getting out of here," and started for the door. "Wait," I called. "Let's think about this. One of my oldest friends just got shot in the heart with a crossbow bolt. I want to know who's responsible." "So we are definitely assuming murder," Joe confirmed. "I mean, a hidden crossbow seems pretty premeditated," Katrina agreed. "Right," I said. "Kendra, you read a lot of mystery books." Hudson looked at her expectantly. Kendra said, "Well, that's true. I guess I would say we need to start by determining whose party this is. It seems like everyone thinks they were invited by a different person. Anyone want to claim credit and straighten that out?" Everyone looked around, but no one said anything. "Okay," Kendra continued. "So apparently this party wasn't planned by any of us. Now, based on the books at least, we have to consider the possibility that we were lured here as part of some messed up scheme. If some lunatic lured us to a booby-trapped house, they would want to see what went on in here. We can search this room for hidden cameras. If there aren't any, then we need to confirm that we are the only people in the house. If there is someone else in here, it's best to catch them while we have the numbers. If there is no one else in the house..." We all eyed each other suspiciously, completing the thought in our minds. "Then the killer might be one of us." "Okay," I started again. "I wish we could all stay together in one group, but that would make us too easy to avoid. We'll do 3 groups. Kendra, Hudson, and I will check upstairs. Katrina, Cora, and James can check this floor. Joe and Aiden check the basement." The 3 of us slowly ascended the staircase. There was a long hallway with a big painting of the ocean hanging on the wall in the center. A mirror hung on either side. We decided to check each room one at a time, with someone always watching the hallway. We cautiously scanned each room, checking closets and under the beds. "Do you think it could really be one of us?" Hudson asked, scratching his head nervously. "It seems crazy, but someone is responsible," I exhaled. "Who could it even be?" Kendra wondered aloud. "Hard to say. I would say Joe, if he weren't my brother. I wouldn't put it past Aiden, but I struggle to see him offing Silas. I mean, he loves that guy." "What do you think of Cora?" Kendra pressed. "She seems nice. I like her, but I don't know her very well, so I do have to suspect her," I admitted. Hudson gulped. "James, will you help?" Katrina asked, mildly annoyed. "I can't. There's not enough room for me to get my chair past the table." "How about you just stand up?" "Oh yeah," he stood. "I forgot I can walk." "Well, the kitchen is clear, the bathroom is clear, the living room seems clear, and I don't see anybody in the dining room," Cora summed up. "So unless the others find someone hiding, it must be one of the group." "Gotta be Hudson," James sighed. "Man, it's not Hudson," Katrina rebutted. "It's gotta be Joe and Aiden." "You don't think it's Nick or Kendra?" Cora asked. "They took the lead too easily back there. It's kind of suspicious." No. I mean, it could be Nick. I doubt he would have dragged Silas into it, though. I guess I don't know Kendra very well." Joe and Aiden stumbled around in the darkness of the basement. "Of course the lights don't work down here," Joe cursed, shivering with fear. They stood back to back, using their phone flashlights to illuminate the basement. "It's pretty cleaned out down here. Not much room to hide unless there's a secret compartment somewhere," Aiden surmised. "Let's check the walls and floors carefully." They were thorough. "If there was someone down here, we definitely would have found them," Aiden decided. "Unless they are hiding in that giant fridge over there." He gestured to a massive white refrigerator that had been humming, filling the room with spooky ambiance. "I guess we gotta make sure," Joe admitted hesitantly. They tiptoed over towards the fridge. "So if it really is one of us, who's your money on?" Aiden asked. "My gut's telling me Hudson," Joe said. "But I doubt he would really commit to such an elaborate scheme. And it's not you and me." My money's on James or Katrina. Hard to say which. I'm going with Katrina, Aiden said, and cautiously pulled the refrigerator door open. The light illuminated their shocked faces as they beheld its contents. No shot! It's full of yoo-hoos, Aiden cheered. I'm having one. He grabbed a box, poked the straw through, and took a deep sip. Ah, man, that really hit the spot, he grinned. Then he fell like a tree and slammed into the floor. Oh, what? Joe's eyes widened. Dude, you better not be pranking me. He knelt and felt for a pulse. There was none. Guys! He shrieked. Everyone ran downstairs to find Joe crouching over Aiden's body. He explained what happened. Oh my God, Kendra exclaimed. What a way to go, I sighed. So no one found anybody hiding in the house, Joe asked. We all shook our heads. So, it's one of us then, he stated calmly. Then, Hudson had it right in the first place. I'm getting out of here. He bolted up the stairs. We followed him and saw as he burst out the front door. As he did so, his gorilla mask dropped out of nowhere and landed perfectly on his head. He began clawing at it, unable to breathe, and stumbled across the front yard. He got about 10 feet before he was fried by so much electricity that it made the night look like day for a split second. Then he fell over, charred black. All right, let's get to the bottom of this, Katrina said. So we are trapped here by some sort of invisible electric fence or something. Silas was shot by a hidden crossbow. Aiden was poisoned by a yoo-hoo. Joe was suffocated by his gorilla mask and also fried to death. One of the 6 of us has to be responsible. Anyone gonna fess up? Obviously no one did. So, what do we do then? Just sit here until the killer gets bored and admits their guilt? We all shrugged. All these traps would have needed to be set up in advance, I considered. Yeah, Kendra continued my thought. Who was the first one here? I got here right before you guys, Hudson said defensively. Joe, Aiden, Katrina, James, and Cora were already here. Whoa, whoa, I got here at the same time as Joe and Aiden, James exclaimed. Katrina and Cora were already here. Katrina and Cora frowned. Well, yeah, Katrina admitted. We were the first ones here. We didn't do anything, though. We were just sitting in the living room waiting for you guys to get here. Likely story, James taunted. James, shut up, Katrina demanded. All right, take it easy. We aren't doing this witch hunt style. Let's just see if we can find out what's powering that fence and turn it off, I decided. Friday the 13th video game, Katrina pointed out. I always hated that game, I frowned. We decided the basement was the most likely option and went looking for a breaker. Hudson couldn't stop staring at Aiden's body slumped on the floor. I'm gonna go get a towel or something and cover him up, he announced. Do you have to? I hesitated. Better to stay together. He's creeping me out, Hudson shuddered. All right, we'll go with you. I grabbed Kendra's hand. Eyeing the other 3, I said, we'll be right back. Hudson led the way up the stairs, towards the bathroom, stepping slowly and cautiously. I watched him carefully and kept a hand on Kendra, making sure that we all stayed close together. We crept across the living room, nodding to Silas's body, then through the kitchen, into the entryway, then to the bathroom. I kept an eye on the hallway, and Kendra looked in through the doorway while Hudson went in and looked for a towel. He opened a cabinet and found some neatly folded. He picked one up and said, this should do it. Then he turned and looked into the shower, where he saw a funny-looking rubber duck. Whoa, look at this little duck! He picked it up and squeezed it. As soon as he did, a panel folded out of the ceiling and a giant anvil fell hard, slamming into the top of his head. He fell over into the shower, and the anvil hit the ground with a loud thud. Hudson! Kendra cried. No! I ran over and checked his pulse. Aw, man. I covered him with the towel he had been holding. They did him like Tom and Jerry. We gotta get back down there and check on the others. This is getting really bad. We made our way back down the stairs, still in shock. The other 3 watched with suspicion as we descended, obviously wondering what the loud noise upstairs had been. We had hardly stepped off the final stair before Katrina started frothing at the mouth, clutched at her throat, and fell over. Cora looked around at us horrified, then fell to her knees to check Katrina's pulse. No! She cried. Katrina too? I exclaimed weakly. Cora looked back at us. Who did this? Someone in this room is responsible. Shaking his head, James whispered to me, I just realized this is literally among us. Obviously, it had been a stressful evening. Due to the surreality of the situation, the stress had not fully hit me yet, but this comment, it pushed me over the edge. I lunged toward James and wrapped both hands around his throat, squeezing and shaking vigorously. His eyes bulged and he clawed at my hands. Nick, what are you doing? Kendra gasped. Stop that, Cora exclaimed in horror. I did not stop. James's face began to turn blue. He kneed me hard in the balls and I doubled over in pain. James stepped back and gasped for air. He coughed. Stop! All right, I'm sorry. How'd you know it was me? Kendra, Cora, and I exchanged a look of surprise. I turned to James and said, "Wait, it's you? You're the killer?" "Well, yeah. Wait, you didn't figure it out? You were seriously going to kill me over an Among Us joke?" "Hey, buddy, I think we'll be asking the questions from this point on." I was still breathing heavily. "Okay, let me explain. It all started one afternoon several months ago. It was a fine day on Facebook Marketplace. Lots of great deals. I saw this house up for sale for $500,000. I figured, what's the risk in shooting the guy a quick lowball? So I offered $500 cash. To my surprise, the seller accepted. I guess they really didn't care about the money. They just wanted to be rid of the house as soon as possible for whatever reason. I came down here to check the place out, and what I found in the basement is what set this whole plot in motion." He reached in his pocket and pulled out a plastic toy. It had a metallic red handle with a little button, and when he pressed the button, a green orb the size of a baseball generated at the end. The orb crackled and waved like electricity. "What the flip is that?" Kendra inquired. "This is a soul retriever. It can be used to retrieve departed souls," James explained. "How do you know that?" Cora raised a scrutinous eyebrow. "It said so on the instructions in the box," he said. "Once I came into possession of this item, I began plotting. I don't want to make a habit of killing people, so I figured I would just make one grand night of it. I booby-trapped the crap out of this house, invited everyone in different ways so that no one knew this was my party, and here we are." "That's really messed up, man," I scolded. "So what, are you planning on reviving everyone now?" "Well, I had planned to wait until everyone was gone and do the last kill with my own hands," he admitted, "just for the sake of the experience. But based on the circumstances, I think I'll probably start reviving people now." James turned off the electric fence with an app on his phone. "Man, Katrina's gonna be so pissed. Do we have to do her first?" he asked, wringing his hands. "I am pissed. What's wrong with you?" Katrina reprimanded him, her eyes shooting open. "What? You're alive?" he exclaimed. We were all shocked, except Cora. We decided I would fake my death so that Cora could watch her expressions and see if anyone acted strangely when I died off script. "Wow, that was honestly a great idea," I acknowledged. "I guess I just figured you had eaten something full of poison. I didn't really test the effects of any of this stuff," James shrugged. Hudson woke with a gasp and rubbed his head. "Youch!" "Phew," James sighed. "Thank God it works." We all looked at him incredulously. "You didn't test it?" Kendra asked. "Never had the opportunity. But it works, so we're all set." Hudson rubbed his eyes and looked around. "I think my vision's fixed." Joe coughed up a storm. Seeing James's face, he said, "Yeah, I guess I should have known." Then he noticed his gorilla costume was burnt to a crisp. "No! My suit! This thing costs $100! James ran off and Joe chased after him. Aiden woke silently and looked around. The yoo-hoo was still in his hand. Shrugging, he said, "Worth it." Katrina helped him up. Last was Silas. Once James revived him, he looked down at his chest and stared at the protruding arrow. Then he looked back up and coughed up a ton of blood. "Oh, I guess it only brings back the soul to the body. It doesn't heal wounds. I didn't think about that. Sorry, Silas. Kinda what you get for not following me back on Instagram, though." "Hospital," Silas grunted, then coughed up more blood. Hudson and I carried him out front. Joe asked James, "So what did you exchange in order to get our souls back?" "I just used the thing. Piece of cake." Joe looked nervous. "You didn't exchange anything?" "There always needs to be an equivalent exchange, dude." Then a giant cloaked figure with a hulking scythe appeared in front of us. "Well, that can't be good," James noted. The figure swung the scythe towards James. It struck him and he vanished with a pop, taking the soul retriever with him. The figure reaped his new truck, too, before disappearing. "I mean, I guess he sorta had that coming, right?" Katrina asked. We all nodded and carried on. "So, who gets the house?" I asked. Suddenly the Reaper reappeared and reaped the house, leaving an empty plot of land atop the hill. "Well, that's about right," I frowned. Hudson scoffed. "Great, now there's blood on my shoe." The end.
I really like that one. That's a good. That's a really good one.
Oh, thanks.
Good job.
Creative
nice.
too.
After I read and then there were none, I really wanted there to be a terror tale like that with all of us, and so I was like, I'll just write it.
I predicted all of the when it was myself, all the references you were gonna make.
Really?
I knew it was gonna be the Silas Instagram thing, the Family Guy. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Who did you guys think it was? Did you guys know it was James the whole time?
No. I thought it was gonna be Cora.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Kind of thought that was gonna be an external.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
Yeah,
I thought about that.
that's kind of what I thought.
I had
Who done it? Joe, here, hey.
Here, buddy, I got your soda.
Here's a crunch bar for you, bud.
Oh, thanks, dude.
Hey, I'll take your
James, have you tried the Oreo Coke?
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, you can say anything you want at this point. Yeah,
Just as long as it's not,
Alright.
yeah, just hit it with,
Yeah.
the title.
That didn't make any sense.
just as long as it's kind of,
Alright, I've been watching the Terror Tales for a while, so I finally wrote one this year. So my story is called Winch-Witch. Part 1. It was a hot, sunny afternoon, perfect for a fun water balloon fight. Fortunately, today marked the MCS 5th annual water balloon fight. This year, James bought 5,000 balloons. See, remember that he had free will. With such an abundance of balloons, James and Joe decided it was time to upgrade the shopping cart catapult they had used in the past years. They headed into the shop to look for supplies, knowing they had a few hours until Nick and Kedja and Hudson returned for the water balloon fight. "Hey, where are they all anyways?" James asked. "Well," Joe replied, "Hudson's still at the law firm, and Nick had to drive to Detroit to get pizza from the flagship Little Caesars since it's the only one left." "Oh, will it still be hot and ready?" James asked hesitantly. Joe looked at James, remaining silent, but his expression said it all. The pizza and crazy bread would not be hot or ready. They continued to the shop to see what they could gather. So far, they managed to collect 20 feet of rebar, 5 bags of quick-drying concrete, a metal trash can lid, an office chair, some spare engine parts, springs, and a 10-ton hydraulic winch. "Do you think we have everything we need?" Joe asked. "Maybe," James replied, his mind wandering. He pointed to the dark corner of the shop and asked, "How about we check over there?" "We don't go in the dark corner of the shop," Joe screamed, terrified. "What? Why?" James asked, puzzled. "Nothing good ever comes from the dark corner of the shop," Joe answered with an expressionless face. That ended that conversation. They quietly carried the supplies outside and began assembling the catapult. They finished quickly, but they realized they didn't have enough concrete to fully secure it to the ground. "Aw, man, we're out of concrete. Can you check the shop for me?" Joe asked James. "On it," James replied. As he walked to the shop, he took a moment to check his text. One from Hudson read, "Gonna be a little later than expected. Just signed 3 new clients at my law firm." Wow, James thought to himself. His business has taken off. Another text from Nick. "You guys want the pretzel pizza with cheese sauce or the pretzel pizza with pizza sauce?" "Tonight's gonna be a good night," James said aloud. Part 2. James entered the shop and checked the spot where they had found the other 5 bags of concrete, but there was no luck. He searched all over, under the lawnmower, beside the forge, and above the sauna, but found nothing. Just as he was about to give up and leave, he spotted 2 little cat-like eyes peering out from a mess of boxes in the dark corner of the shop. "Oh no, Meow must have gotten out," James thought. He quietly approached the dark corner. Just as his eyes adjusted, the cat bolted under a pyramid of boxes and disappeared. Concerned for the kitty's safety, James began moving the boxes. After shifting about 8 heavy crates filled with who knows what, he discovered a small, dusty trapdoor in the ground. Meanwhile, outside, Joe was increasingly concerned about what was taking so long. "He should be back by now. It doesn't take that long to go to Little Caesars," he muttered, frustrated. After a brief pause, he added, "Oh, and where's James?" Part 3. James stared at the trapdoor, its worn wood and rusted-out hinges giving off an ominous vibe. Curiosity got the best of him, and he opened the door. With a loud groan from the hinges and a plume of dust in the air, the door creaked open. James expected pure darkness below, but instead he was shocked to find a dimly lit, narrow dirt hallway lined with candles. "James," Joe's voice echoed from outside, but James was already too far down the dirty, dusty corridor. He walked cautiously until he reached a large opening in the end. Peeking in, he froze in horror at what he saw. A low-ceiling room with walls lined with shelves filled to the brim with ancient books, cobwebs, and jars of various contents. In the center of the room sat a large, open cauldron. James crept in for a better look and saw that the cauldron was empty but had been used recently, as it was still warm. As he backed away in horror, eager to escape and boarded up, a chilling presence fell over him. That's when he saw her. Part 4. Back outside, Joe was pacing and muttering to himself what was taking James so long. Finally, he decided to check. He entered the shop, and not finding James anywhere, he stopped and stared. Of course he went to the dark corner, Joe grumbled. He approached the trapdoor and descended into the corridor. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up with every step. When he reached the end of the hall, he looked into the main room and saw James standing there, frozen. He was not alone. A short, hooded figure with long gray hair stood just a few feet in front of him. Joe rushed over to James, who was still staring at the hooded person, who gazed at the ground. "We gotta go, now," Joe whispered urgently. As they started to back away, the hooded figure let out a loud, ear-splitting cackle. It looked up, revealing the oldest-looking woman either of them had ever seen. Her skin was gray like her hair. her nose at least 6 inches long, and hideous warts covered her face. They both turned to bolt out, but 2 bookshelves near the door fell and blocked their exit, spilling their contents everywhere. They frantically tried to clear the door, but she began to speak. "How nice to have visitors," the witch hissed. "Perhaps you can help me with a little experiment." "Not a chance," Joe yelled. Just then, a dark coil of mist began forming around their feet, dragging them closer to her. Panicking, they grabbed whatever they could find and hurled it at her, but nothing worked. As they inched closer, Joe reached over and managed to grab the witch's broom. He tried to pry the coil off, but it was no use. "Let me try," James yelled urgently. He took the broom, but instead of trying to free Joe, he swung the hard wooden broom at the witch's head with all his might. She staggered back, trying to brace herself on the cauldron. Thinking quickly, they struck her again until she was dazed and she fell back into the cauldron. "Quick, the lid!" Joe shouted urgently. James grabbed the lid and slammed it down on the cauldron. Joe jumped on top of it to keep her inside. "Wait, I know what to do," James exclaimed, quickly grabbing a roll of string wick from beside the candles. He swiftly tied the cauldron shut, the witch banging on the lid and the sound echoing throughout the room. "Now what?" Joe asked, wide-eyed. A moment passed, and they both realized. "Catapult!" they shouted in unison. Part 5. They quickly ran back outside, grabbed the hook from the winch, and dragged it down through the shop and into the witch's room. Carefully, they attached the winch to the bottom of the cauldron and started up. The winch began pulling, ripping through the hallway and through the trapdoor, creating an even bigger hole. Finally, it dragged the cauldron outside to the catapult. They loaded it up, set the springs, turned on the engines, and pushed the button. With a loud thump, the cauldron flew through the air so high and so fast they lost sight of it within seconds. They paused to catch their breath just as Nick and Kendra pulled into the driveway, holding 5 pizzas. They also received a text from Hudson. "Hey guys, I'll be there in 5 minutes. Also, did you see the shooting star?" Everyone waited patiently in the little driveway for Hudson to arrive. Once he got there, they all rushed inside, eager to eat some Little Caesars. "I love Water Balloon Day," Hudson said excitedly. "It's the only day we get to have Little Caesars anymore." Just then, Nick's phone began ringing. He answered it silently, then quietly said, "I see," and hung up. Everyone stared at Nick, who looked clearly distraught. "A flying cauldron hit the last Little Caesars," he said painfully. "It's gone forever." The end. So, this takes place a little bit in the future. We just had a second annual water balloon fight, so 3 years in the future from now, Hudson has a law firm.
What a terrible prophecy.
No.
Everyone change your futures right now.
Yeah, what'd you guys think?
I liked it a lot. That was awesome.
I liked it a lot.
That's what I expected from you, James, for this story, though. That's very good.
Just for the time being. You're right up there, buddy. Put the speaker.
So I guess I didn't title this. So here we go, I suppose. "Hey, thanks for picking me up from the airport," Joe said, buckling his seatbelt. Aiden said nothing in response, only stepping on the pedal and rapidly shifting up to 4th gear. "You've come at a bad time," Aiden finally responded in a level tone. Joe looked over at him to read his expression. Lightless eyes, stark features, and a furrowed brow met his gaze. "How would Halloween be the wrong time to come home? The leaves don't change like this in Florida, and I feel like I haven't seen you guys in forever." With the same grit as before, Aiden said, "The leaves aren't the only thing that have changed." Putting his intrigue and annoyance aside, Joe shifted his focus to outside the window. There were no other cars on the road. They even passed the Apple Cinemas parking lot, which was also empty, though that was hardly surprising. That place had been going out for years. Rolling up to the intersection 2 minutes from Nick and Kendra's place, Joe saw something strange. Whoa, when did they block off the road there? The barricades were 10 feet high and concrete walls that spanned as far as he could see in either direction. Some time ago, "We have to leave the car here. There's no way in with a vehicle." Aiden parallel parked next to one of the barricades, and they both hopped out. The air was cool and the sun was low in the sky, even though it was only 5 p.m. Joe put on his backpack and walked around to the trunk where Aiden was standing. "Take these," Aiden offered. Oh, cool, we're gonna play baseball?" Aiden stared at him, confused. Oh, right. The gloves and baseball. No, those are for insurance liability purposes. Take a bat. You might need it. They both did so, and Aiden led the way over to a light post that was next to the wall. He tossed his bat over the wall and climbed up the post, dropping over the other side. Hurry up, he yelled over. Joe followed suit and made his way up and over. Upon landing on the ground, he brushed himself off and picked up his bag and bat. Looking around, he was shocked. The buildings on this side of the wall were smashed out and burned. As they began walking, he saw that the electrical substation had melted to the ground. It looked like an energy pulse had destroyed everything. Joe picked up the pace to catch up to a fast-moving Aiden. What happened here? Why? Everything is in ruins. Whole town's like this. The wall covers the town border. It all started when a hand grabbed Joe's shoulder as he spun, swinging and missing with his bat. Whoa, calm down there. A little jittery coming back to town? The hand belonged to none other than Katrina. What are you doing here? And James, you too? Joe lowered the bat to his side. Oh, we were waiting for Aiden to get back with you, Katrina said. Yeah, it's too dangerous to travel without at least a few people these days. It's great to see you guys, Joe started before fully hearing him. Wait, what are you talking about? They ignored him and started plotting with Aiden. This road is still the fastest, and it's been clear recently. Plus, we shouldn't be out after dark, Katrina argued. I told this guy you should get an earlier flight, Aiden pointed at Joe and started making air quotes. But he said something about not wanting to rebook and refund. If you had told me about whatever all this is, I would have, Joe said. To his chagrin, the three of them started laughing. All right. Anyways, we should take county. I agree. With no more than that, they started walking down the road. Not only were the roads empty and all the buildings they passed battered shut or destroyed, but there were no animals. Birds, squirrels, cows at the farm they passed, all gone. When they weren't joking, the tension began to feel palpable. Their eyes searched the darkening woods along the roadside and scanned the open hills and the breaks. There was nothing there, until a strange sound began to emit from the lumber yard in front of the farm. Silently and in unison, Aiden, James, and Katrina crouched and started making for cover in the form of a sign across the street. James waved Joe down and along with them until they made it behind a large sign advertising apples and pumpkins. The noise sounded like loud, repetitive clicking. It continued on for a moment as Aiden gave the sign for them to stay hushed until it faded out into the distance. God, we're lucky that thing went the other way, Katrina said, poking her head back around after some visual reconnaissance. Tell me about it, Aiden said. They all made their way back to the road, starting forward again, this time faster. After putting some distance between their stopping point and themselves, Joe asked, terrified, You guys have to tell me what that was. I mean, what kind of thing makes a noise like that? It definitely wasn't human. After a moment, James said mysteriously, Not anymore, at least. Joe was so baffled by the response that he said nothing more until they arrived out front of Nick and Kendra's house. The yard looked nice. You could tell they'd put some time into fall cleanup and Halloween decorations. The house, however, was strange. Like others he had seen, all the windows were boarded up, and not even a bit of light came from the building. That figures, Joe thought. The substation is destroyed, but why isn't the backup generator running? There was also, extending from the roof, a large antenna made of solid steel pipe and wrapped in all sorts of wiring. It went above the tree line and reached into the house from a hole that had been cut in the roof. This was far more concerning than intriguing to Joe. He could only begin to imagine the changes Aiden had referenced earlier. The party of four swiftly ascended the front door steps. Aiden pounded on the door as loudly as possible. We know you're in there, Nick. Let us in. We only want to talk. There was no response. Fine. If you don't, we'll light off all these fireworks, and then you'll be surrounded by those things. They'll break down your doors and get inside. James quickly produced a series of fireworks that had been fused together from his backpack. This was not an idle threat. The door unlatched and swung open. They all stepped through, and James closed the door behind him. Where are you? Aiden demanded, raising the bat. I'm home, man. Where you at? Joe called out, but Katrina held out a hand to silence him. That's when the smell of the house hit him. It was like salt water, like low tide. Joe's eyes adjusted to the dark. All around them were tanks and tanks, ready for some sort of fish, but empty. "Hi," said Kendra, abruptly appearing, and Joe screamed and flew backwards. "Whoa, sorry, I didn't expect you there. Oh my god, sorry. Give me a minute. Oh man. How have you been?" Everybody looked at Joe, so he stopped talking. The tension in the air regained its looming pressure. "Nick doesn't want to see you guys, I guess," Kendra said. "That's too bad. We want to talk to him," Katrina said. There was a silent standoff for a moment before Kendra cut all the tension by saying, "All right, he's in the basement right now, I think." "Thank you, Kendra," Aiden said as he passed by. The rest of them followed suit, all thanking her as they entered the stairs. Kendra went back to her room and resumed playing with the cats. There was even more tanks in the basement, all still curiously empty. More than that, there was a workbench and a Frankenstein-style operating table beneath the antenna that came out of the ceiling. "We know you're in here, Nick," Katrina said. They fanned out and started searching the closets and bathroom and the spare bedroom. They all regrouped after finding no sign of him. Then, suddenly, some of the ceiling tiles gave way and broke open. They fell to the floor with a hard crash. "Aw, dang, man, that hurt." "Shit, ouch," Nick said, rolling around a couple of times before standing up. He dusted himself off and looked around. He was encircled by the rest of the group. "Why did you do it?" Aiden demanded. "Your creations have destroyed the town," Katrina said. "We've been fighting here for weeks, and no power means no Family Guy," James added. "I swear, I didn't mean to," Nick protested. "Your unholy experiments have cast us out of the Garden of Eden and into the realm of what evil spirits would otherwise possess us," Aiden reiterated himself. I know, but really, it was an accident. You know, those creatures, unmodified, are known for their immortality. I only sought to summon that ability in others. This was the modern-day search for the Philosopher's Stone, or the Holy Grail. I could have kept everyone alive forever, but I failed. His voice fell into a reminiscing melancholy. "And now the demons I have produced live to haunt us all." Why are you guys talking like that? I mean, since when have you all spoken like that? Joe asked. They all looked at it, but immediately carried on in a more passive discussion. It's no big deal, man. I got out of work because of this. Plus, they haven't killed anyone we know, so it really doesn't matter. That's what I'm saying, Nick agreed. Well, being as you created these things, do you know how to defeat them? James asked. Joe still had no idea what these beasts might be. Actually, you guys have come at the perfect time. I just developed this. Follow me. Nick led them over to the workbench. Behold, the resonance blaster. That's nothing more than a motor strapped to a stick with triggers on it to complete the circuit. That's correct. But these hellspawn are particularly susceptible to low decibel noises. They should be stunned when you blast these in their directions. It just so happens I made 7 of them. 7? But there's only 6 people in this house, James said. Oh yeah, Hudson's coming over. His mom made apocalypse very terry steaks, and he's bringing me one. Just then, the basement door opened, and in rushed Hudson and Kendra. Hudson dropped the bag he was holding and pressed against the double doors to seal them shut. A flurry of clicking started emanating from behind him. Nick, I'm sorry, but a bunch of them got in. The smell from the Veritaire. They've been following me the whole way here. Hudson was, in fact, covered in sweat. Did you have to run the whole way here? Joe asked, shaking in his boots, imagining the monsters. No, these ones were actually pretty slow. I was just nervous that I'd have to stop and tie my shoe and they'd get me. That's why I'm sweating bullets. Oh, okay, Joe said. Good to see you, by the way. The banging on the door behind Hudson brought everyone back to action. Everyone take one of these. Nick dished out all the resonance blasters he had made. Joe marveled at how Nick had used duct tape, scotch tape, and hot glue to bind the weapon together. Now turn them on. They might hurt your ears, but it'll stop these things dead in their tracks. Hudson, let that door open. We can defeat them when they're frozen. Hudson nodded and joined the ranks in the line. Instantly, dozens of half-human, half-lobster hybrids flooded the room. They clacked their claws together menacingly and bubbled out of their disgusting human-sized lobster heads. Their claws could no doubt take an arm off with one pinch, and Joe doubted that a single strike from a baseball bat would even dent their plated bodies. They all pulled the triggers on their gun, filling the room with a low rumbling. The lobster people shook around and stopped where they stood. Oh my God, I thought they were going to chop us all up and eat us for sure, Katrina said. I mean, I've seen what these things did to some deer, and The sound of shell cracking interrupted her as Aiden worked a lobster person to the ground with a baseball bat. He struck it over and over again until his head was nothing but leaking pulp. Okay, so I guess we just do that to all of them. So it was a horde of lobster people this whole time. It wasn't like zombies. I thought for sure those clicking sounds were like clickers from The Last of Us. Nah, it was always lobster people, James said, and they all agreed. Okay then, let's get working, Joe said. Over the course of the next 2 hours, the gang continuously lit off fireworks to attract the lobster people and beam them with the blasters and beat them down. When no more lobster people came, they relaxed. So what should we do with all this lobster meat? Hudson asked. These are lobster people, Hudson, not for eating, Kendra started to say, but James cut her off. You think I could sell these for my hot dog cart? James asked. Oh, definitely, Katrina said. They all murmured their agreement. And that's how James became the richest man in the state. The gang all worked together to harvest the lobster meat, and Katrina and James cooked them. At first, they manned only one cart, but quickly, they each started peddling their own, all under James's LLC. That's why every year we celebrate Lobster Day instead of Halloween, at least around here. Joe stopped explaining to the group of people standing in the James Lobster LLC museum to let them take it all in. That's it.
Oh my god. Oh yeah, let's spin you around a little bit.
I love it.
That was great. Oh, I loved it.
Appreciate
That
it.
was by far your best story, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
That was amazing. Didn't have any idea what was going on up until the point where, as soon as you started mentioning the tanks, I'm like, oh god, I'm trying to discover the elixir of life through lobsters. I just finished reading The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells like 2 days ago.
Oh, really?
You see the regular show commercial style like teaser promo of Aiden saying like it came at a bad time.
Yeah.
I like that these stories are included in my stuff.
I know James is heavily featured this year.
Was that like a last minute story, or were you just finishing it?
Oh, 100%. I started it 3 hours ago.
Oh wow, that was really good.
Bump and seed for you.
That shit looked like the battle pass.
Cup of milk for anybody?
Cup of milk.
Yeah, can I microwave it?
Oh, I guess.
Alright, this is called Night of the Harvest Supermoon. Take that, Hudson, Nick said mockingly. Kendra, your boyfriend is bullying me, Hudson called out in response. How much longer are you guys gonna play Smash Bros? I really want to start carving those pumpkins, said Kendra. Well, I guess we could do that now if you really want to, Nick said with a tinge of disappointment in his voice. Hudson and Kendra both let out a laugh as they went to grab the pumpkins from the garage. When are you guys going to carve on your pumpkins? I'm going to do Raphael from TMNT, said Hudson excitingly. I think I'll do Super Saiyan Trunks, Nick replied. Kendra looked around the room for ideas and wondered what her pumpkin should be. She saw one of Meemaw's toys laying on the ground and sparked up with an idea. I think I'll try to do a portrait of Meemaw on mine. Maybe I can make him look like a giant or something, she said with a giggle. Hudson and Nick both looked at her and shook their heads in agreement. Then the three traveled downstairs to the basement where Meemaw usually resides, but were instead met with nothing but an empty food bowl. They filled up his bowl and shook it around to make some noise, but the cat never appeared. Huh, that's strange. Meemaw always comes right when you shake his bowl, Nick said with concern. He's probably sleeping somewhere. I wouldn't worry about it, dude, Hudson said, already heading back up the stairs. When they got back upstairs to their pumpkins, they could feel a cold tinge in the air. Who turned on the AC? Nick said with a shiver. Kendra went over to see if there was a fan on, but instead found the window above the kitchen sink wide open. The three went over to examine the window and found 3 dead mice trailing away from the house. Aw, poor babies, Kendra said immediately as she saw the creatures lying dead on the pavement. We can't just leave them there, she continued. Let's bring them to the woods and bury them. The night approached them quickly with a dark blue sky, and they could feel the change in temperature immediately. Leaves coated the ground in the midst of fall, and a brisk wind thrashed through the leaves like an ocean wave. The three continued to walk through the backyard and entered the woods where they could find a peaceful spot for the mice. They each rustled through the leaves as they attempted to evade the upended roots and rocks. Do you guys see that tree over there? Hudson pointed to a large pine tree with a seeming green glow emitting from behind it. As Hudson moved over to the pine tree, his foot slipped underneath a large root. He quickly fell and landed his hands harshly to the cold ground. The lower position to the ground gave him leverage to peek behind the trunk of the tree. "Whoa," he said, with a bright look on his face. Nick and Kendra were still in the dark of the woods, but could see by the green glint in his eyes that he had come upon something. Hudson got it from the ground, and they each moved onward to the backside of the tree trunk. They were met with a bright beam of green light that was almost blinding to them. Once the initial shock of the green beam came over them, they noticed that this beam was more than just that. The light was emitting from a vortex. "No way," Nick said in disbelief. Kendra and Hudson stood there with their mouths open in awe. They all stood there for a moment, silently, taking in what they had just found. Before anyone could let out another word, the vortex started to spin. Faster and faster. The vortex twirled until it started to spit out some kind of furry creature. "What the heck is that?" Kendra said as the vortex let out a paw, then a leg, a head, a small furry body, then a tail. Soon enough, it seemed apparent that the vortex was spitting out cats. One after another, cats slowly came out of the vortex, until finally they just started flowing like water. Paw after paw, tail after tail, until there were almost 50 cats in front of them. When the cats emerged from the vortex, the first thing they did was form some type of huddle. The cats closed in on each other until all of a sudden they whipped their heads toward the three humans standing in front of them and let out a screeching hiss in unison like nails on a chalkboard. With the craning of each neck, the eyes of the cats lit green, the same emerald green as the vortex. Hudson still had his back to the tree and was closest to the vortex. Kendra and Nick were already inching away from the first sight of the cats. "We gotta get out of here," Hudson said with a quiver in his voice. The time it took for the cats to unwind from the huddle and lunge after them was immediate. Before anyone could anticipate the next move from the cats, they had already taken Hudson to the ground. The cats pawed at him and pulled his shirt with their sharp teeth. Quickly, Nick and Kendra grabbed sticks from a nearby tree and batted them towards the cats covering Hudson. The cats were swatted off like flies until a large beast emerged from the shadows. The cats all backed off from the boy and swiftly ran over to the vortex, jumping in like gazelles. The moonlight offered some subtle light between the trees, and a beautiful orange fur poked out at them from the darkness. The orange fur continued up to almost 10 feet tall, and whiskers the size of sticks glinted in the moonlight. A soft purr rattled the leaves beneath their feet, and they quickly knew the identity of the beast. "Meow," Nick called out as he ran forward to the cat. Nick patted his hand to the soft fur and felt each individual hair pass through his fingers. "You're a lot bigger than when I last saw you. Maybe left the cat food, am I right?" Kendra rolled her eyes in response, and Hudson laughed, still flat to the ground. Meow stepped to Hudson's side and swiftly passed him through his paws and up onto his back. Hudson lied on his back and conformed like a wet dish towel. "You alright, man?" Nick asked. "Those cats seriously got me. One second I was watching that dang vortex spin, and the next I was flinging cats off my back," he replied with a deflated breath. "I'm not even going to ask about Mima right now. Let's just get Hudson back before those cats return," said Kendra. Swiftly, they moved through the woods and were soon greeted by a warm light illuminating from the house. Hudson regained some strength during the ride back and slid right off the large cat's back. Suddenly, Mima spoke with a low, raspy voice. They called themselves the Tezcatlipoca's after the Aztec god of the underworld. Each harvest supermoon, they summon a vortex and scour the earth, looking for people to take back to the underworld that will become slaves to their master. The harvest supermoon only occurs every 3 years and 33 days, so I've been learning how to harvest the power of the moon to become stronger and destroy them. I'm glad that I found you all before it was too late. If it was any minute later, they would have pulled you into the vortex and turned you into cats." The three stood there baffled, with their mouths gaping wide open. For one, they'd never seen Meow this size, let alone speaking. Also, the idea of the Tezcatlipoca scared each of them. There's no question that we have to destroy that vortex, but how do we do that? Clearly you have a better idea of what's going on, so you must have a plan, Nick said. Wait, so am I gonna turn into a cat now? They were all over me back there. Meow looked at Hudson with a meaningful glare. As long as they did not inscribe the letters of the 3, then you will be fine. Letters of the 3? Kendra chimed in. Yes. They choose their victim and begin to inscribe 3 numbers of 3 and 33, making a total of 6 numerical groups. I'm not sure what would happen if you have any number less than 6, but you should be safe from their underworlds. Quickly, they ran to Hudson to ensure that he did not have any of the marks of the 3. Hudson first checked his arms, good. His stomach, good. His legs, good. So far, no one could spot any numerical marks. Nick checked along his back and noticed a slight etch of a 3. The mark was not completed and only showed half of a 3. Meow came over to assess the damage, and he concluded that he was saved just in time. Let's keep an eye on Hudson until the end of the harvest supermoon. After that, any of the damage that you got should disappear with the setting of the moon, he said. Hudson took a loud, deep breath of relief. Don't worry, Hudson. We'll make sure that nothing happens to you, Kendra said. Okay, so to destroy the vortex, we need to get close to it and draw an ancient rune that will combat the effects of evil coming out of it. If I know the Tezcatlipocas, they'll have their guards around the vicinity, said Meow. What happens to the cats once the vortex is closed? Hudson asked. The cats will dissipate into dust and cease to exist. Anyone that got turned into a cat but did not go through the vortex will be turned back to their human form. Okay, well that sounds easy enough. What does this rune look like? Nick asked. The rune is simple in its design, but must be aligned perfectly with the dark side of the moon. The image looks like the sun within the moon with the exact tree that the vortex was found behind. To do this correctly, the sun has to have rays extending from the moon that point to the dark side of the actual harvest moon. This can be difficult to do, so choose wisely which one of you will complete the drawing of the rune. Wait, you're not going to do it? Hudson asked, concerned. I'm not allowed to get close to the vortex, or else I can feel the evil effects. Being as I'm already a cat, I cannot get too close without morphing into a Tezcatlipoca. However, when I harvest the power of the supermoon, I can do many things that I usually cannot. For example, I use that power to grow larger and give off an aura that protects me from that very thing. But the power that I've harvested is wearing off, and I use most of it to find the location of the vortex. This task now has to lie with you 3. Can you at least give us a ride? Nick asked. I mean, you are still my cat. You can ride on my back until the tree with the vortex becomes visible. After that, I'll stay close by if you should need any guidance. The 3 did exactly what Meow advised and slid off his back when the tree was in view. They huddled for a moment and broke off to begin their mission. Just like the cat had told them, the Tezcatlipocas had 3 groups of cats guarding the vortex, their eyes still glaring that bright green. Nick and Hudson crept up on the cats and immediately tried to divert their attention away. Knowing that most cats can't resist a tuna snack, they threw tuna treats into the air, and even the evil cats went right for them. Quickly, Kendra ran as close as she could to the vortex and began drawing a large moon. Nick and Hudson started sprinting towards the cats and picked them up one by one, throwing them into the vortex. Kendra lifted her hands up to the moon and aligned the rays of the sun exactly where the dark side of the moon landed. Now, all that was left was to draw the tree. Soon, the treats ran out, and the cats had realized the plan that the humans were attempting. Nick and Hudson struggled with the cats as they started to fight back at them. The cats hissed and clawed, trying to get them in their grasp, but did not avail. Meow came in swiftly and knocked the cats to the ground with a quick sweep of the tail, jumping up at the ready. The Tezcatlipocas knew their real enemy at this point and did not even bother with the humans. However, a stray Tezcatlipoca ran out from the woods and struck Kendra in the face, knocking her down before she could complete the rune. For a moment, she lost consciousness and was woken by a bright green light. She forgot what she was doing, where she was, and who she was. She looked around and noticed a large cat and 2 humans fighting off 3 other cats. She could feel the energy of the moon surging through her when she lunged at the humans, taking one down. "Nick," Hudson yelled. She could hear a dark voice in her mind that repeated, 3, 3, 3, 3. She did not know why, but did not question what she needed to do. She began with her claw, the start of a 3 on his back, until there was a group of 6. Hudson lost track of what to do and panicked when he noticed his friends become evil Tezcatlipoca's before his very eyes. They returned his gaze in the color of a bright green that told him that he was going to be next. Hudson knew he couldn't throw his friends into the vortex because then they would be slaves in the underworld, but he also knew if they turned him into a cat, they might not have any chance of returning. Mima was starting to lose his power and shrunk down slowly with each movement. "Mima, I need you to wrangle up all the cats so I can complete the drawing," he shouted. "I'll do my best." Mima found a stash of treats in his pocket and threw them far away from the tree, watching the cats follow. Hudson moved over to the ground and began etching the tree into the picture. The Tezcatlipocas came running back once the treats were depleted, and Mima could see their green eyes approaching. "Hurry, Hudson!" With the last stroke of the tree, the rune started to glow a bright green, and the vortex spun quickly in the reverse direction. Within 3 seconds, the vortex shriveled up and disappeared. The air suddenly felt lighter, and everything was less intense. Hudson and Mima ran to the spot where the cats were supposed to be, found a big pile of dust. Lying close by were Nick and Kendra, back as humans.
Yeah.
Yippee!
I like that. Chat, is Meow goated?
We got 2 Meow here.
Meow.
Hey,
Goated, I think.
so is Meow base form less DP than Meow big? Because I don't know who to start with. Do they have the transformation, in Sparking Zero?
Well, I'm just going on a limb here, but seeing as it's a moon-based transformation, I think it's same as Great Ape Rules, which in Sparking Zero, it seems like you can kind of throw that up as a transformation technique if you have enough skill count. So I'd probably put that at like a 3 or 4 skill count transformation ability, and I think that would probably jump his DP considerably. So yeah, I would probably start base form.
Okay.
Thank you, chat.
That was really good. I like it was very unique to what we've had for Terror Tales in the past. I like that. I didn't.
Most like Calipocus. What was it?
Tezcatlipocas.
Calipocus.
Something like that. I had no idea what was going to happen after the vortex opened up.
Yeah.
And I did not count Goated Meow being part of it at all, or any of the lore behind it.
Yeah.
That was really dope.
It was really well made.
Thanks.
It's like clearly fleshed out, like that. Just the idea of that and the whole like theme based around like the runes and different certain points of like like the events and whatnot, like lunar eclipse. Like shit. So,
Kendra, I like the magic system that you had. I like the character interactions felt like real.
Yeah. I love how everyone kind of had something where Hudson was leaping out the door, like, and saying, "I'm gonna get out of here," like something like that.
let me tell you a story about the time I became a cyborg. This story is called Hudborg, by the way. Yeah, it's only that's how that's what it's titled. Let me tell you a story about the time I became a cyborg. I was induced into an instant slumber. After placing this helmet I bought on my head, disconnecting myself from reality, I never buy things from the internet. With my newly found cash from my job, I decided to take some from my stash. From there, I remembered no more, as it was such a bore. For my mind, it was a sore to think evermore. I left a message for whoever it may find. Maybe my dear friend Nick shall add it to his mind. Every time I'd placed that stupid helmet on my head, it made me wish things that I could have said. Seemingly a bore, I often think. Yet when I put that helmet on, I was in a tank. For my eyes were in a different body, a clunky tin body. A scientist wearing a bandana and a mask, with round frame glasses. Could it be someone I knew, or one of those messed up asses? By the time I re-entered reality, I'd be hospitalized each time. Before I knew it was all too late, I wrote a letter to a friend's future. A box was upon the steps. Nick opened the door after hearing a knock. It was a giant crate that needed a crowbar to open. It was about the size of Nick himself. The letter landed in his hand. For whom it may concern, this may be my last handwritten note my hands can inscribe. In this box you'll find a metal man. My soul is in it. It must be taught the ways of various things such as video games, movies, and most of all, art. I already have programmed it with over 200 responses to rather often asked questions. For who am I? You shall not know. Until the day I come to grab my invention. The creator won't be known because of how much I've grown. For now I sit and ponder more on how that robot is such a wonder. Be careful with his bolts and hinges, for he may stop answering what you tell him. But he shall be fine as long as you are with him. What? Where did this come from? This can't be real, he blurted as he opened the box to see a face he hadn't seen in years. But it was Hudborg. A big metal stamped letters and were bolted on his chest. He had lengthened hooked arms and rocket feet. He was built like something he himself would make. Hudborg, at your service. Beep, boop, the Tin Man said. Hudson, what? Hudborg, Joe said as he basically jumped to his feet. It's like something we made up before. Something that was never real but often talked about. It's Cyborg Hudson, Nick said. I thought I heard you mention something like that before. Kendra, rather spooked than intrigued, responded. It felt like a classic horror movie. A friend is gone. An incarnate or possessed robot. Joe, Kendra, and Nick went down to the basement. Well, what do we do now? Kendra asked, rather scared. I don't know. This hasn't been the craziest thing that's happened to us. Do you remember that? Joe was stopped before seeing Hudborg and walked down the stairs. I can sense you're scared. I can sense your heartbeat. Joe's 112 BPM, Kendra 130, and Nick, yours is 143. Hudborg exclaimed. Rather than the loud, distorted voice earlier, it changed to a recognizable voice that they once knew. Hudson, it's you! You recovered, Joe said excitedly. Joe had been wearing his handmade costume for the Halloween party that they were prepping for. It was clearly themed off of Godzilla or a variation of a kaiju city-destroying monster. Come to think of it, all of them were wearing costumes. Nick was dressed up as future Trunks while Kendra was dressed up as Cell. Before feeling a sudden pain, I couldn't control the robot at all. I just realized I was being preserved seeing through its vision. I haven't had any control this entire time. Yes, Joe, I made a full recovery. Rather cool that I became a robot like this. The robot mimicked a safe approach to the situation. Joe looked at the robot and went for a dab up, and the robot beeped, and before countering Joe's action, he gripped his hand firmly, crushing it. Ouch! What the? Joe said before stepping back, coddling his hand. That's not Hudson, Kendra and Nick said at the same time. The robot began sparking before grabbing Joe with a claw-like hand, gripping his torso before throwing him to the other room in the basement with a crash. Joe! Nick said, rushing to his side. I have one final move left in me, but it's going to take a couple minutes to prepare. Nick gave him a blank stare before nodding, looking back at the cyborg, whose eyes were red. He no longer looked like his lost comrade. It was more clanky, built like a classic robot. That's no longer Hudson, Kendra said again. The robot continued to clank and made louder groans as it moved. Who created you? Nick asked, rather upset. JF, the robot replied. JF? Nick asked. James, Joe said. It's ready. I've been preparing for this one for a long time. Behold the power of what I can do. Before what could be done, a teleporting sound revealed James, who stood in front of Joe, hand out, palm facing, and absorbed whatever punch Joe went for, before reflecting it back, sending Joe flying through the wall to the backyard. A follow-up attack. James slammed Joe to the ground, watching his body bounce against the dirt, knocking him straight out. James looked back through the hole in the wall. Who's next? None of us, Kendra said to him. Tell us your motivation, Nick said. Well, when Hudson went into those induced comas, I was inspired by Facebook Marketplace. There was this guy selling a huge, almost sci-fi looking tank for cheap, only 1 Bitcoin. He said, smiling at the accomplishment. I figured I could help Hudson by preserving him in a hypersleep, so I asked his parents, who agreed, and I took him with me. I took some brainwaves and put it into the robot, but forgot to fix the evil switch. Wait, so you're good, or are you evil? Nick asked, rather conflicted with his thoughts. Oh, no, I'm evil for my creation, but I didn't mean any harm for that. But the police are coming pretty soon. I can hear the sirens. So I'm just going to take this guy back with me and work on some kinks. I mean, all I have to do is switch his brain back to normal, and he should be good as new. James said, laughing evilly. This is a good thing, though. I wanted to laugh evil. You can't just come into my house and wreck it, James. What's going on? Fine. Ever since Katrina left, it's all been goody-goody things around here. I can't take it anymore. I had to bring evil into it. So I made a brain helmet and sold it to him. I made it seem like his reality was something different. He could be a superhero of sorts, like he makes himself. You're a psycho. A supervillain, Kendra said. I'm just a hot dog car owner, James said. You can't do anything about this. It's too far gone. This is just the beginning. I'm going to be evil from now on. I hate Little Caesars. He said before hitting a button and the robot didn't respond. It shut down. Still clearly worrying. If you want Hudson back, you'll have to bail me out or make me talk. The code for his reset is 0902. Hands where we can see them. Step into the car now. An authoritative voice let out. When I get out, it's all over. You will be fully cyborgized, James told them before getting tased and falling to the ground. Everything turned back to normal. With the police talked to Nick and Kendra and Joe broke his arm. They suffered minimal injuries. How will we get him back? There could be a billion other numbers, Joe said. They heard a knock at the door. Nick opened it up. It was Katrina with a cape around her shoulder. I know how you could stop him, she said, stepping in, the door slamming behind her. To be continued.
Man, Hudson always turning into something, bro. Cyborg Hudson, zombie Hudson, vampire Hudson. Dude, why when you said JF did I really think you were going for JFK? And then I was like, oh, wow.
I did too.
Yeah.
It's because he said like Jimmy Carter last year.
Yeah.
Wait, I just remembered the Hudson rap, like half of that story. I just remembered
That's,
that.
yeah. I had to have my mic off. That's because when I speak, I can't hear you guys. It automatically turns off the sound you make. But I was like, what? I actually died, bro. I can't wait to see my reaction on the camera.
My original plan was to make Nick as the pure villain, but then I didn't end up changing it when I went back through. I'm pretty excited for next year's, guys.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, the 5th annual.
5th year is going to be crazy.
5th annual.
Something special somehow.
Real.
Yeah.
We'll book a venue.
Oh, wow.
Up on stage.
Yeah, we'll do it in front of like a.
Let's go see if we can't do the high school theater. Take the high school theater.
This one will blow up. We'll have fans next year.
Yeah, right.
Bye, guys. Thanks for
everybody.
watching.
Bye.
Happy Halloween.
Thanks for watching.
Booga booga
Happy
booga.
Halloween.